This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
When you hear the word solitary confinement, your mind probably goes to the cliches: a dark cell, maybe a steel bed bolted to the wall, a tray of food shoved through a slot once or twice a day. The reality, it can be all of that. Plus, a level of psychological strain that can hollow a person out from the inside long before their sentence runs out, or their life. And for someone like Bryan Kohberger, the question isn't whether prison will be rough. That's a given. The question is whether he's going to be in that kind of isolation for months, years, or the rest of his life. Because high-profile inmates, especially those accused of crimes that cross the prison code, killing young women, harming these young people as they were just about to begin life, don't just have the legal system to worry about. They have the ecosystem inside. An ecosystem where your name, your case, and your alleged actions can make you the kind of target that never stops moving, even if you're locked away in a box 23 hours a day. So how long can that box stay closed? Does prison administration ever look at someone like Kohberger and say, all right, it's time to move him into general population? Or are there cases where solitary becomes the only safe option until the inmate dies in that cell? And if that change does happen, what's waiting for him on the other side? Jeffrey Dahmer lasted less than 2 years. Other notorious inmates have been taken out within months or days, even hours. The threat isn't just a possibility. It's a given. Which begs another question. What's the incentive for other inmates to take that shot? Is it revenge? Is it about a twisted code of ethics? Or is it the oldest currency in prison, respect, notoriety, and fear? If you dig deeper, and the deeper you get into it, the more it's clear that survival behind bars isn't just about doing your time. It's about navigating a political, violent, and unpredictable social order where the wrong move or just the wrong name can get you killed. So today, we're going to look at the reality of long-term solitary, the politics that decide when it ends, and the razor-edge inmates they walk when they carry the kind of notoriety Bryan Kohberger does. Joining me to break all this down is someone who understands the calculations from both sides of the courtroom, former prosecutor and now defense attorney Eric Faddis. Eric, let's get into it.
In theory, he could be in solitary for years and years. However, what often happens is that they don't keep a person there forever unless you're on death row or something like that. And so what the staff looks at is they look at resources, they look at risk level, they look at historical record of the person while in custody. And there have been a number of high profile folks that have been transferred to general population or some equivalent thereof. And those folks have a target on their back, especially when we're talking about Kohberger. Killing young women is usually a taboo crime in prison, and he's done that multiple times over. And so multiple targets on his back, and I don't think they're going to keep him in protective custody forever.
And that's going to be interesting to see what happens then. I mean, Dahmer lasted less than 2 years. I just did a piece yesterday that went through so many high-profile killers, and they don't last long. The target is there. Why is the target there? Let me ask you that, and I think I know the answer, but maybe you can explain it better. Why is there such a target on somebody like Kohberger's back, someone who's going to be in prison for the rest of his life? What is the benefit for someone behind bars to go after Bryan Kohberger?
There are a lot of considerations. There are prison politics at play. Even in prison, there is an ethical code, and there are certain crimes and perpetrators who are far less desirable and looked down upon. Like I said, killing young women is usually a no-no in prison. He's done that multiple times over. On top of that, these folks don't have much to lose, especially folks who are in prison for the rest of their lives. And so killing somebody else is not going to make their situation substantially worse. On top of that, there is some infamy that can be gained, some respect, some notoriety, some fear within those prison walls if you take out a high profile perpetrator like Kohberger. So a number of incentives within those facilities for folks to target Kohberger if they can reach him. And there are ways in which he can be reached.
Expand upon that a little bit. Like what, you get the notoriety, you get, some of the respect in there. I mean, you are behind prison walls. Does that give you more security yourself because you are the one who took out someone like a Bryan Kohberger, or does that make you a bigger target to yourself because now you're somewhat infamous? You're the guy who took out Bryan Kohberger. If somebody takes out the guy who took out Bryan Kohberger, and maybe you're a guy who took out some other people too, I would think that would make you a bit of a target too. It's like kind of on both ends. Like one end's on the feeding chain here, one's way up here. I don't know. Kohberger's like low-hanging fruit to a certain extent.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on the particular ecosystem within that specific prison. But certainly, there is an idea about like in prison, kind of keeping your head down, doing your time, not doing too much in there. And when you're taking out a high profile inmate and killing him, well, then your name gets around and some folks might give you respect and fear you. Other folks might say, hey, you're the new guy with the target. You think you're this big top dog who took out this high profile inmate. Well, we're going to show you you're not the top dog. And so all of those things go on. And it's and on top of that, Tony, these folks have so much time on their hands that all they have to do is think about these kind of things and scheme and plot. And that's how we see, assaults and killings in facilities.
If we could just take the ingenuity of our prison system and the people that are in it and use it for something good. Imagine all the things we could get done beyond license plates. I think there's a lot of ingenuity there. I mean, you're talking people who evaded the system for quite some time usually, and there's a lot of intelligence there. And if they're just using it to torment Bryan Kohberger, I mean, I'm okay with that one. But again, using it for other things would be lovely. Is there anything, I mean, if you were Bryan Kohberger's attorney right now and you're advising him, obviously he's waived, he's not going to appeal, he's just there he's there for the rest of his life. There's no more court hearings for Bryan Kohberger, but he does have some rights. What are you telling him? What are you telling him how to survive this? How to get on somebody's, is there getting on somebody's good side? What would you be advising him to survive basically at this point?
Some folks on the inside want to like join a gang because there's strength in numbers, there's protection in numbers. I don't think a gang is going to take him. Even a white supremacist gang is probably going to say, yeah, hey, come hang out with us and then shank him in the yard or whatever. So I don't think that's going to work. The one angle he might have is he does have allegedly this autism diagnosis and, does constant verbal and emotional torment exacerbate that condition? Is he particularly vulnerable to psychological injury because of that? And could that warrant some kind of change in circumstances based on, requests filed within the prison system? It's at least possible. And so that's something I would explore if I was his counsel.
It's like the only option that you may have at this point. Have you ever seen something like that be argued and be successful? I mean, if you look at most of the inmates in prison, I'm going to guess you have a very high percentage of folks that are, either somewhere on an autism spectrum, personality disorder, mental health issues. I mean, there's a lot of things there that one could say are beyond the control of that individual, and it's a mental health type problem. Historically, prisons aren't that accepting of those things of even being like accepted as legit. Obviously they are. We know that they are. But when you weigh it with the horrible things that we know Kohberger did, that sort of consideration, doesn't hold a ton of weight, at least in, the general population. But when you're talking about more of an institutional type setting that should realistically consider that sort of thing, consider it if it wasn't Bryan Kohberger. If this was someone who's wrongly convicted, hey, let's take Richard Allen, for example, who I believe was wrongly convicted, who I'm sure they're not giving any sort of, leniency to. Do you expect it here for Bryan Kohberger? Is this something they'd even consider?
I think at the very most, they would kind of go through the motions to give the appearance that they were considering that, and then eventually just say, "Too bad, bro." But another potential out that Kohberger could consider is providing more information. He could come with some kind of proposal to prison officials, to the DOJ, to local prosecutors, and say, "Hey, I'll tell you all about why I did this and how I did it and who helped me, if anybody. If you'll give me some kind of break here within these prison walls." We saw that with Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's kind of sitting pretty at this nice, low security resort.
Yeah.
And so that's what you can think about.
That is an interest, like using it as a carrot to dangle out there. But let me ask you this: even if you were to do that, at the end of the day, it seems like a lot of these decisions are made within the prison walls. They're not made in the justice system. They're not made in a courtroom. There's no courtroom saying you're going to be in solitary confinement. That when he gets to the jail, they're like, "Well, how are we going to handle this here?" They make that choice. So I mean, it really just could be somebody who's like, "Screw him, put him in general population tomorrow." There's not a court that's going to stop that. And by the time if somebody went and tried to find some sort of injunction on him, can you even put an injunction on that? Is there any way to stop that? Should the warden say, "We're moving him"? Can a judge say, "No, put him back in solitary"?
I don't see any viable legal mechanism by which Kohberger could contest such actions by prison administration. There is no ongoing case. And as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I see in court all the time, requests being made by inmates that, "Hey, I'm not getting my medicine," or, "Hey, I'm not getting proper nutrition," or stuff like that. And the courts just say, "Hey, the jail is not under my jurisdiction. The prison is not under my jurisdiction. They're not a party to this case." And for Kohberger, there is no more case except for appellate proceedings, which is different. So no, a court is not going to step in and in fact would have no jurisdiction to step in and hear such a challenge unless it was some kind of Eighth Amendment cruel and unusual punishment, habeas corpus, something or other. And even then, I think the chances are slim to none.
Is that a problem? I mean, let's take Kohberger out of the equation here. I mean, because that is a scary prospect. It's a reality of what we deal with in this country, what we're living with right now, what we're accepting as free people in our country for how we treat those that we have incarcerated. Not everyone incarcerated is guilty. There's a good chunk that are not. To accept that as okay, like they're not getting the medication they need when it is available, when it's basic, simple decencies to humans, not like here you're going to get an extra Snickers tonight or anything, just basic, okay, so you can survive. And there's plenty of people who didn't murder 4 college students who are behind bars as well. There doesn't seem to be very much oversight. It seems to be kind of, where these prisons are run by whoever you get to run them. Sometimes they're humane and they're run very well. Sometimes, they're horrific. And it's run kind of by monsterish human beings that like to be monsters to other people. Again, with not a lot of oversight and not a lot of consequences. This has gone on forever in our country. We've heard this. You wouldn't expect it to be going on in 2025, but it really is.
Oh, it is. Yeah. And I've seen some hellish circumstances, some just indifferent callousness within those prison and jail systems that, like you said, that there's no real way to remedy it. You don't have a legal avenue you can pursue. You can't file a motion with the court saying, "Hey, the jail officials are putting me at risk," or something like that. Can't do that. And so, does there need to be some kind of adjudicative process within the institutions themselves? There is when there's misconduct, when inmates are cited for doing something wrong. But what about when the jail staff is doing something wrong? That happens all the time, whether folks want to believe it or not. And so, there is no such process. But should there be some kind of independent oversight or some sort of internal adjudicative, fair, impartial process to address these grievances, you'd have a heck of a lot of grievances from these folks who have a lot of time on their hands, but maybe it's worth it.
Listening to Eric lay it all out, one thing becomes clear. The decision to keep someone like Bryan Kohberger in solitary or to move him is less about his comfort and more about logistics, resources, and risk management. It's a chess game where the pieces are violence, politics, and the constant calculation of how much is this going to cost us if it goes wrong. In theory, solitary confinement could go on indefinitely. In practice, prison officials often make changes based on staffing, space, and their read on the inmate's behavior. But as Eric pointed out, moving someone like Kohberger into a less restrictive setting doesn't remove the target on his back. It just puts him closer to the people who might want to collect on it. That target exists for a reason. Inside, there's a hierarchy. And certain crimes drop you straight to the bottom. Killing young women, killing children. Those are marks that never wash off. And in the notoriety of a case that's made national headlines, international headlines, and you've got a mix of motives for other inmates, revenge, self-righteousness under the prison code, and the kind of infamy that carries weight on the inside. For someone serving life, what's one more body if it earns you a name everyone in the yard knows? And a canteen filled by the general public that's happy you did something great. And sure, there are ways an inmate might try to survive that reality. Alliances, gangs, deals with the administration, but those are no guarantees, especially when no one wants to give you a deal. Sorry, Bryan, you're going to die. In Kohberger's case, even angles like the autism diagnosis or mental health vulnerabilities are unlikely to generate more than surface-level gestures of concern from a system that, as Eric reminded us, often just goes through the motions before saying, too bad. The harder truth is that there's no legal magic wand to wave here. Once the courts are done with you, your day-to-day safety isn't argued in front of a judge. It's decided inside those walls. That's true whether you're guilty, innocent, or somewhere in between. And while most people aren't losing sleep over Kohberger's comfort, the fact that our prison system operates with so little oversight should make anyone think twice. Because this isn't just about him, it's about a system where decisions about life, death, and safety are made out of public view, where no meaningful check-in or check on the people making them takes place. In Kohberger's case, solitary might be the least worst option. For someone else, it could be a death sentence, and unless something changes, the line between the two is just as thin as the walls of that cell. Tell me your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube if you're not there already. Just search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski and you will find us there. You can also press subscribe wherever you download podcasts so you don't miss any of our coverage wherever you are listening. Leave those comments. Looking forward to it. Until next time, my name's Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.